Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, where the topic is From Projects to Products, Transforming PPM for Digital Organizations. My name is Robert Stickle. I'm also joined by my colleagues Jim Patterson and Paul Estabrooks. During today's webinar, attendees will be on mute and the line will not be open for questions. However, feel free to use the GoToWebinar question feature to submit any questions that you may have. I will address these during the webinar and will respond via email if we do not get to your specific question. If for some reason you get distracted or pulled away from the webinar, no need to worry, as I'll be emailing a link to the presentation once it has been posted on our YouTube channel. I will now turn the presentation over to Jim.
Thanks, Robert, and welcome everybody. Our topic today really is timely. I believe organizations today in the modern world are undergoing a lot of transformational types of things and transformational efforts. Today, we're going to focus on things that are impacting PPM within digital organizations and the move from more product focus to more project focus to more product focus. And hopefully you get some value out of this and some of the trends that we're seeing in the marketplace, as well as the analysts. So some of the topics we're going to cover today is some of the challenges in today's modern digital age. Then the shifting traditional project-oriented to product-centric focus and defining some of that, as well as some of the product-centric concepts and approaches. And then we're going to demonstrate how OnePlan addresses this approach and how the more modern approaches can be addressed in a common solution or even hybrids of those types of things. And my colleague Paul Estabrooks will demonstrate that to you later on in the presentation. At the end, we'll summarize, wrap up, and have some next steps for you that you could possibly take if the things you see here are of interest and relevant and timely for you. So with that, let's get started. You know, this age of digital transformation has been upon us for a while, and we hear this term a lot, digital transformation. And it really is more than about, technologies so much. It's really about disruption. And in this world, you either can be a disruptor or be someone who is disrupted. I know these are older, let's just say, recipients of that disruption, and sometimes it's been casualties. But in the industry such as travel, changed the nature of what we used to do with travel agents, and now with online bookings and rideshare apps and status and notifications you get on things automatically, but the way you travel is all digital in the way we do things today. Video rentals, we all have streaming, mobile device anywhere viewing, anywhere, anytime. The whole idea of picking up a video is diminished to very little over time, like the blockbusters have gone away. The music industry, the way we stream our audio and listen to our music on videos, online and things like that, has transformed what we used to do with records and cassettes and other things like that, and CDs. The newspapers, the way we consume the news, online, social media, news feeds, notifications and alerts that we get on our mobile devices for that has transformed and reduced the number of people that actually read newspapers and hard copy magazines these days. The same thing with bookstores. The idea of digital readers and the way we can just have a book in our hands within seconds on demand has transformed that. And we've seen the closing of bookstores all over the place. And department stores, the challenges they have today in remaining relevant, and how there's been the culling and the reduction of the number of those types of stores out there in the marketplace as online shopping becomes more prevalent. Now, there's more modern examples of these types of things in more modern and technological companies today, but this just gives you the idea that if you don't act, you can become a dinosaur. And so the idea here is to stay on top of this and at the forefront. And change is the new norm. In order to stay relevant, in order to stay leaders in your marketplace, in order to address the needs of your customers, change is the new norm. In the past, we used to have longer product life cycles because the availability of a product or the relevance of a product may have been out there for years. And we used to be able to plan projects in a traditional long-range, big giant projects with big deliverables at the end, and really manage to the plan and hope that what we deliver at the end is still relevant at the end of that year or 2-year cycle. In the future, we have a much more unpredictable business environment that's constantly changing, and we have to constantly adapt and change, meaning that we have to adjust and change almost on a regular, routine basis. And if that's not the mode that we're working in today, we are going to miss the boat or miss the mark on what we're delivering as value to our customers. And on top of that, the pace or the speed of change continues to accelerate. It's not getting any slower. Where you might come out with a new product idea, it might have a market life cycle for you of 2 or 5 years in the past. Nowadays, you're lucky if what you put out today, as far as a current release of a product, might have a life cycle of 18 months or 2 years if you're lucky. And you always have to be looking at what the next horse to ride is as we continue to innovate and adapt to those changes in the marketplace. And the impacts are felt in many aspects of our enterprises or our organizations. The speed at which we innovate has to improve, and we have to allocate time for people to innovate rather than just doing routine tasks. Our customers have higher expectations. They're more educated. They a lot of times do their research before they even come to us, and they have high expectations of what we want to deliver, how we deliver it, and other ways to satisfy them. The demand for simplicity is there. Even though the technology that we have behind the scenes and a lot of things we deliver to our customers is very complex, in this app culture where we're used to just putting things on our mobile devices and start using them without training or things like that, the demand for simplicity in the user experience is paramount these days and expected. And the rise of the competition. A lot of solutions or products out there, sometimes for the domain and only accessible to larger organizations today. And I would say that in this day and age, not only is technology available with high-end capabilities to small companies as customers, but the rise of the competition now means that the startups in this world are your competition. They can easily, via the cloud, provide offerings that compete with yours and sometimes make them more nimble if they're smaller and more reactive to change and adaptive to change as we go through there. And then time to value. Customers are demanding that we get value sooner in our efforts and have it commensurate with our investments as we make it, not wait long periods of time to receive the value. In this metaphor you see in this graphic of a caterpillar to a butterfly, we have to evolve and we have to change as we go through in this metamorphosis. And it impacts all areas of the organization. The executives who have to have the vision to formulate new business models or approaches to reaching customers and ways to monetize different things in different ways that can actually be revolutionary for different businesses that maybe used to be traditional brick and mortar and product businesses. The PMOs have to adjust because they're dealing with many more digital and software development projects, even in non-technology industries, where the differentiator for them may be the technological basis on which they interact with their customers. And then obviously the software development puts more burden on those people in the organization to actually develop and produce relevant technological solutions that will meet the needs, that fulfill the vision of the executives and meet the needs of our customers. And ongoing, as we put out more software and more technology to do those things, we have to have support organizations that help maintain that and make sure that it executes properly and that the customers are getting the value that they expect to receive. So it really impacts everybody in the organization, not just the tech people. So digital transformation, we hear the word a lot these days. And for those of us that are immersed in this on a daily basis, sometimes it can seem, it's gotten almost cliche, but for some people it's a relatively new concept, and it can also be a little nebulous at times as far as what is actually meant by that. And it really is more than technology. It is about people, process, and technology and how they fit into the mix of the approach and the mindset of the way we do business. It's really new ways of looking at the business. It's focused on the customer. We need to be customer-centric in this modern age in order to be successful. And it really involves new strategies and approaches to take advantage of the new opportunities that are presented by these new ways of looking at the business or the new ways and business models we have of reaching our customers. It also has to address not only the customer-facing experience that our customers see, but also the back office operations that help us support this ongoing and help us to deliver on a consistent and quality basis. In order to achieve this, it's not just these nuts and bolts that we have to adjust. You really have to change mindsets throughout the organization because it is a radical shift in the way we look at things. And to be able to achieve this and embody it as an organization requires a mindset change. So to evolve to more product orientation and agile approaches is the trend here, because it delivers on the promise of many of the things as far as quicker time to value and all the different things about delivering more frequently and in more ongoing continuous ways. The first piece to do that is really get away from some of those larger monolithic projects and break work into smaller, easier to manage pieces and embark upon those. And then iterate. If we iterate and deliver things on a routine basis in smaller increments and incrementally roll those out to our customers, whether they're internal or external, get value sooner. And we get to adapt to changing conditions if we don't commit to too big of a chunk each time. And as we learn through each iteration, we may even change our focus on what we want to deliver in the next or following iterations based upon that experience. Also, organizations and the way they measure performance must also transform. The things that we look at, the metrics that we have, from traditional ways that we used to do things, need to evolve so that we are reinforcing the right things and the right behaviors and the right outcomes. The key is there's benefits of doing this at all levels, from the executive level all the way down to the individual teams that are actually delivering on these objectives. The key would be to be able to get value sooner to our customers, to be able to delight our customers, to be able to adapt quickly to change, as I had mentioned. The prioritization of work and being able to deliver the things that deliver the best value or the biggest value soonest, and get those in the hands of the customers because we can do that more quickly. Delivering in smaller chunks actually can impact quality because we don't have such a broad swath to test and make sure that we regression test against and those types of things. Also adjust team size to demand, meaning that we can flex an organization based upon how many teams or what team sizes we have allocated to specific products based upon the demand and the impetus for those particular individual products or initiatives. And then ultimately, if we dedicate these teams to these things, we can achieve what's considered a leaner organization with less overhead and more effort applied directly to the efforts at hand. Some of the move from more of a project focus to a product focus is intended to deliver these types of benefits. So it's really about changing the model. On the right, we're looking at a picture depicting a more waterfall process. And this really indicated that kind of long-range plan. Let's commit to the plan, and then let's make sure we don't deviate from the plan. And the success of that plan was making sure that we don't deviate from that plan, and we come in on time and on budget, and we meet the requirement that was set at the outset. Doesn't necessarily reinforce or emphasize the need to adapt and change necessarily. The concept of change orders would make people unhappy if you deviated from what was committed to early on, and those types of things. So the mindset maybe isn't conducive to this new approach that we're talking about. Now in that middle, by breaking these things out into smaller chunks or blocks of work, and then focusing on these things into continuous streams of work, these product roadmaps could be product lines or products or service areas of which we're delivering incrementally but continuously over the life cycle of that project or product, I should say, and then actually having releases that release on an ongoing basis to keep improving and adding to that product or product line. That type of focus doesn't have discrete starts and ends. It's a continuous life cycle of the product and investing in that stream or that value stream. So the first thing we have to do is define what a product structure is in our organization. And there might be different product families that you have, different types of products, et cetera, and organize those things. But you want to, however you organize and group what you call a product in your particular industry, you need to align those groupings to your stakeholders, meaning the people you're actually doing this for, and your customers who are ultimately going to be the beneficiaries of this and get the value out of it. We also have to have assigned teams, and having dedicated teams aligned with specific products and their expertise thereof is a key foundational piece of having a product focus. Having product roadmaps so that continuous delivery or continuous stream can be followed in an organized and thoughtful way and a prioritized way so that we're delivering the right things early and the more correct things for later. And it also changes the way we align budgets. Instead of maybe funding individual projects that are smaller in nature, oftentimes the budgeting happens at a product line or analogous to a value stream that people are budgeting, and then dedicate teams to those budgets to consume that budget and then deliver according to a more agile, continuous delivery type of approach. So what is a product? It seems pretty fundamental or 101 here, but it could be a lot of different things. It could be something that serves a customer, and that customer could be either internal or an external customer. It also delivers capabilities that customers value, that you're providing something that a customer wants or needs. It has to be named and clearly defined. It can't be something nebulous. It has to be something that you can put your arms around and define and say, this is what we're going to deliver for the customer. This is the value they're going to receive. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a tangible, hard product. It can also be a repeatable service that you're offering in this service and cloud economy. It could also be just a platform that you're delivering, and you're always updating that platform that people can work on, whether it be a business platform, whether it be a technology platform, whatever it might be. It's also something that can be bought, sold, or subscribed to. So there is some monetary value or a way that you can actually monetize that and receive compensation for that from a customer. And the key here is to a product is that it will likely have competitors. If it's something that you're delivering that no one else wants to deliver, one, you might ask yourself, why are we the only ones in it and why is no one interested? But if you have a hot idea and a hot product, likely is people are going to nip at your heels and try to get a piece of that. So in the product model and moving to more agile approaches, we have the concept of a stable autonomous team. Stable autonomous teams are multidisciplined and have the ability within that team to deliver everything needed to what they've been assigned. They typically have particular expertise in that side, in whatever that product or the technology is that they're working on. And they get better because they work together over time on a common set of technology or products that allows them to get better with their velocity, their quality, and the innovation and all aspects of the way that they deliver. In this model, typically you establish these teams, and unlike the traditional, older model where you actually have functional matrixed organizations that apply teams or people to the projects. In a product model, typically you have a team there, and then you basically align or you bring work to the teams in order for them to then fulfill. And then these teams work per an agreed to product roadmap. They're going to execute on something that is coordinated usually by a product manager who is the liaison between what the end customer wants and what the organization is going to deliver to make sure expectations are matched, the requirements are gathered, and making sure that we're delivering the right thing to the customer and even have their finger on the pulse as things change. Ultimately, the goal through all this is to keep the customers and stakeholders happy. Delighting the customer is the end result. And in this day and age with our more demanding and sophisticated customers, the only way to keep them is to delight them. Now, this shift is not theoretical. This shift is already underway into a more product-oriented type of approach. In a benchmark study done by Gartner, this is a little bit older, but even by 2018, CIOs said that by 2018, 72% of them had some measure of product orientation and product line management in the way they manage things in IT. Meaning from several number of years ago, this trend was already taking place and gaining hold and increasing over time. And if you look at the degree of that, another study basically said that the depth of that, meaning how much of what we're doing is using a product-centric model, not just whether we're doing it at all, but how much it is embedded itself in our organization, is increasing over time. To where in 2020, it was 66% of the efforts were being done in a more product-centric focus. And the projection is by 2022 by Gartner that 79% will be the number at that point in time. So it is continuing to trend up. So this idea of delivering value sooner, in that traditional longer waterfall type of approach, the longer term included a lot of maybes. You gave your best shot at requirements very early on in the process. long before you probably encountered any unknowns in the course of the project. You committed to deliveries later on, and the maybes are, can we do it within that time and effort? Will the things that we deliver in that long range delivery date, will it still meet the need by the time we get there? And a lot of other uncertainties as we go through that. And on top of that, a lot of the investment of the dollars had to happen up front in order to make this project work. And then the customer does not receive value for what is delivered until the end of that delivery cycle, which could be a year or 2 years, depending on, or more, depending on the nature of the project. Now, in the more modern trend, when each outcome delivers value from the minimum viable product that we define early on for the outset of a product as you go through the product life cycle, and then subsequent releases that you go on, you deliver value early and often. And then the investment that you make as an organization is commensurate time-wise with when those deliveries happen, meaning you invest a little, you get some value. You invest a little more, you get some value. And by the way, successful delivery early on helps breed the ease of getting funding for the next iteration as it delivers value and it shows its merit to the customer. So the idea is this approach allows you to generate not only better success, but better customer sat all the way around. So from a product-centric goals perspective, why do people do this? And the top goals for a product-centric delivery model, once again, another Gartner survey or assessment, is that speed to market and agility when faced with changes seen as benefits of a product-centric approach. Now, in that, 50%, I mean, the biggest one here was increased customer satisfaction. So that's no surprise there. But the next three, 50% was time to market or value, to improve that, to respond faster to changing or unclear requirements, which is that speaks more to that iterative approach and realizing that needs change rapidly over time and we don't know everything up front. And then respond faster to changing priorities, because even though the customer thought they knew what they wanted at a certain point in time, their market conditions may change, their landscape could change, and then all of a sudden, even what was a good idea before, they say, put on the brakes, we need to take a left turn and make a change and do something different. So be able to respond to these things successfully, and not only that, but also meet or beat our competition by these faster responses, are all product-centric goals and part of the reason, or some of the main reasons, why people go into this approach. So overall, we talked about mindset, and organizations must change. It's not just changing process or changing frameworks or approaches or methodologies. It really is about changing culture as well in the workplace, and changing expectations and rethinking all that from not only the people that execute, but from the stakeholders and the expectations they have that align with this customer-centric view of the world. In this cartoon to the right, a little joke is, what if we don't change at all and something magical just happens? The dynamics of the marketplace today don't allow us the luxury of doing that. It's changing fast. There's people who are entering our space all the time who want to compete with us or take a piece of what we have or do what we have better and overtake us. And if we don't have our finger on the pulse and we don't do things that help us be more responsive, we could find ourselves being like the Blockbusters of the world. So in that change, that mindset of some of the things that we do in different areas, from a project focus to a product focus, on a funding side, you basically would budget in the past for the life of the project based on resources and time, and you'd project that very early on, and that was supposed to be your budget all the way through the project. On a product focus, it's ongoing. It's continuous delivery as a share of an overall budget based on business need and ROI, and you may be funding things at a higher level, maybe funding at a value stream or a product line area, and then doing your individual projects or releases as part of that, but not funding those as individual projects. On the work side, it ends on a fixed date in the project, and it delivers on certain milestones or phases in a very discrete set of timetables. On the product side, it ends when the product is retired at the end of a product life cycle, but it delivers regular continuous releases until that point. On the change side, in project focus, change is avoided, and when possible, managed through change requests, which nobody's ever happy about. In product-centric, change is embraced, and executed by lean agile teams that value speed of delivery and making sure we're delivering the right thing all the time. Focus. In the focus of projects, success is based on time and on budget, minimizing risk, where in a product, it's about delivering business outcomes, and the most valuable thing to do next is we put our sights on what should be in that next release. On teaming, projects have that, as I said before, matrixed and functional specialization, who essentially allocate resources across that to projects, where products have dedicated multidiscipline product teams that you bring work to and maintain the consistency and the efficiencies that are embodied thereof. And on the tracking side, in projects, you have variances of cost and time against the plan, but in product focus, it's by the number of teams, the value delivered, and the ROI achieved. It's about results and outcomes that we're working with through that mix. So these are just some high-level things that show that there's a different focus as you move into a more product orientation. So from a language perspective, going from project plans to more product roadmaps and team backlogs, going from the term projects to maybe more minimum viable products, doing more traditional earned value management becomes looking at things like burn rates and backlogs and velocities and those types of things. And old project management styles were more about stage gates, and now it's more about continuous delivery and release trains and those continuous flows of value. So from a solution overview, just to tee up what Paul's going to demonstrate to you very quickly, is that OnePlan is designed to handle these things from the strategic level as we plan this from the executive level on down to the execution and the way we deliver the work. Looking at a roadmap picture here is just one dimension of the way we look at that, and we're going to show different ways that we can manifest that, whether it be your traditional PPM, that you're doing more waterfall approaches if you're still doing that, maybe more adaptive approaches that might be a hybrid of more product-oriented or project focus, or agile versus more traditional approaches, or maybe full agile approaches where you want to do more agile and lean portfolio management and more agile execution across the board. OnePlan has a role for you in all of this and in that product orientation that we're talking about here as well. So the support for these different models is all embodied in this, and Paul's going to show you that today. Now, this has been built for the Microsoft Cloud. It can be used strictly within your browser from the cloud, but it can also be consumed within the other tool sets that you're working with within the platform in Microsoft, whether it be in Teams, whether it be in Power Apps or Dynamics, whether it be in Azure DevOps itself, etc. There's variable ways that you can consume this, and just be aware that it's flexible in that regard. So with that, Paul, I'll hand it over to you for the demonstration.
So I'm going to walk through a fairly brief demo, but I want to highlight some of the things that Jim has talked about. We're going to pivot what we would often demo into more of a product mindset and a product mentality. So I'm in our portfolio view here in our OnePlan solution, and I'm logged in through a browser straight into OnePlan itself in this particular demo. So I'm here in my typical portfolio view, so I can expand this down, and here we're looking at value streams, and then epics, and then underneath that we're actually going to look at features. So an agile type mindset, just a sort of standard drill down that I wanted to show to start with. You can see we have agile release trains, and we have teams aligned to some of these items, particularly at the feature level, and in some cases at the epic level. But I'm going to pivot this view just quickly. I'm going to switch to an epics list, and then I'm going to group by product. And we're going to start sort of this journey of how we see each of these projects, or in this case, epics, how they align back to a specific product. So you can see here a couple of things to highlight. We have different products. They are aligned to associated corporate strategies, and that'll come up a little bit later as well. Each one of them, there's some user stories and completed stories, so some status information about how they're progressing, and that's the features underneath them. They are, in this case, epics, but they're also linked to a number of agile development tools. And this particular one is Jira. This one is DevOps, and so forth on down the list. So we're bringing together a couple of different potential environments. You can also see the Teams icon there. So some of these projects have a team site as well. And we're aligning them to product, and we're organizing some around this sort of epic and feature story or construct in this particular view. I could take a different view. I could look at this and say, I want to look at it in a PI summary. So underneath that, this idea of program increments. And this is that continuous improvement mindset. Is these map back, these are the features mapping back to specific epics, which I just showed in that previous view. But now I'm looking at these particular program increments. So this was sort of the first 3 months of 2020 and the next months and so forth. What items have been identified? What release trains are they on? I could have another column here that shows what teams are involved. And how are we rolling that out in this concept of continuous improvement? So we have products, and underneath those products, we have epics and features that relate back to them in terms of how we're going to advance that product and that mindset. But underneath that, as we schedule out the work and sort of lay this out, we're using program increments to look at how we structure everything and where we're going to put our focus to drive our attention to those things we need most, and then work through this in a logical and systematic way, adjusting for changes as they occur. So that's some of the list views. If I jump over here to the board, some of this Jim showed or talked about a little bit more in the slides. Here's a look at our board view of those same projects, or those same epics rather, apologies. Columns are the different product lines. So I can look at these different products and say, which is my, how are these mapping out? What are the different, in this case, epics in here that align to each product? And I may have stuff in the backlog, and I do. And I can drop those into whichever product they are in, or I can put them into other different views. So I want to take that and say, now I'm going to look at this again by that program increment. And I'm just going to make this a touch smaller so you can see it a little bit better. Here's my different program increments. My lanes are the different teams. Okay, so these particular items or work items, or in this case, epics, they're aligned to certain teams, and in each program increment, we have a budget and we have so much work that we want to get done. You could see those strings that start to highlight the interrelationship between some of the different items, some of which are going now, have downstream impact and so forth, back and forth. So there's 3 types of dependencies we're showing. There's a blocking dependency, a related dependency, and a dependent dependency. You can see those 3 different ones there by color. So I have status information in the color coding of the card itself, but I'm seeing what each team is working on in each particular program increment as I work through this and plan out my work. And again, I have a nice rich backlog that I can continue to funnel in as we plan out program increment number 5 and 6 and 7. Maybe we make a decision to take a card out of a particular program increment to respond to some changing circumstance and bring in one or a couple of others instead and refocus that particular team on those different items in the next upcoming program increment. This allows us to adjust and to rapidly respond to changing in the marketplace, within our organization, to things like pandemics and whatnot, to react to the things that impact our business and pull in other work items and move stuff out. So this is the board views that we like to use. The third way we might want to look at this was a screenshot that Jim had up on the screen there just a few minutes ago, is now I'm looking at those epics in a roadmap view. How does this all link together? Where are there interdependencies across products? You can see some of the lines there. And within those product groups around different initiatives that we're doing, and where are they in terms of being in flight or completed or what have you. And then you can see the color coding tells us the ones that are in trouble or are at risk versus the ones that are progressing well. We could quickly glean this very useful information to surface for executives to sort of understand how it all knits together across the different product lines. All of these views are configurable. You saw me sort of switch a couple of them to what I wanted to show. And so there's lots of different ways we can surface this data, group by different things, change color status, color by information, change date ranges, all that information to gather up and to display the views that we want. So if I dive in from here, I'm just going to go over here and pick a project. I'm going to dive into the details. I want to show a few things about how this particular epic came into being and where some of the data is captured. So it has a name, obviously. It's linked to a value stream. It's tied back to a portfolio. Portfolio might be a governance structure. It is linked to a product. It's also linked to the value stream, as I mentioned, as well as a strategic theme. So top of the house, sort of, OKR type language, where we want to look at what are the overall objectives we're trying to achieve, and how does this particular initiative map to that. It also has a governance workflow. So it's gone through a funnel, it's been reviewed, it's been analyzed. This is sort of lean portfolio management language. It's been in the backlog of items that we want to work on, and we've now moved it into implementing. We know what program increment it's in and where it all fits together, and lots of other rich information that we can capture about this. Typical things you might want to know from a business case or better articulation of the initiative. All configurable. The screen is configurable to help you understand what you're trying to do and what information you need to capture. And down here, you can see the specific features that are a part of this epic and which program increment they are in, what team owns them, and so how they're progressing as part of achieving and completing this particular epic in support of strategic themes and improvements across the organization. Some other information we're capturing is the budget for this particular epic. Jim talked about that in his slides about the importance of having a budget. So this particular epic has a budget that would roll up to the product's budget, also to the portfolio's budget for that matter. And you can see some of the information we're capturing here, including the labor costs budget and then actuals I'm showing here as well for the specific teams that might be on this project. So we've got a couple of teams that are assigned to this one in Q1, and you can see sort of how the actuals compared to what we had originally anticipated. Likewise, we could do resource planning. So here we have our resource sheet, team 1, team 3, and the hours that they're to spend on this and what capacity they have, and I could start to pull in what the actuals were as well and other information as I plan out how we're going to execute this. Both teams, and then you can see a couple of named individuals, potentially that's a product manager or some other role that is also participating in this and to what level. So we can map that out. And again, we're looking at it by quarter because that aligns with how we're doing our program increment planning. The third component here I want to show is, I'll use the term schedule, but I'm going to look at it in a couple of different ways. Here's a list of the features and the tasks that we have. I'm looking at the backlog list. So this is being pulled in this particular case, from DevOps for this project. So I've surfaced that information here, including assigned resources, due dates, what iterations they might be in, and so forth, so that I fully understand how this work is getting done. And this is that integration back to DevOps where the development team is checking in code and managing things and completing tasks there. I could pivot this list around to look at it sort of in a schedule type view and see that information sort of where it lines up. And the view that I actually want to show is we also have the idea of a board here for this particular epic to look at what items have not started, what are in progress and completed. Is just one of the board views I wanted to show. So for the epic, we can capture business case type data under details. We could start to map out what that budget looks like and do quarterly planning around the budget and the teams and other expenses we may incur. We could plan out our resources. Again, I did the resource planning at a quarterly level to be consistent with how we're doing the program increment planning. And then we could see the schedule and the various tasks that we're doing and how they integrate back to DevOps all through these different work plan views that we have here. I'm going to conclude the demo. I'm going to jump back to the portfolio and click on dashboard. To sort of bring all of this back home is the idea that we want to be able to report on this. We want to be able to learn from the information that we're gathering. We want to be able to dive deeper into it and make critical decisions as we move forward in that constant sense of adjustment and replan, recalibrate, adjust again, and go. And so using Power BI, we have a rich set of reports. I've clicked on a couple and I'll show a few more here that we can lean on to gather that information, to drill into the data, to learn more about what we're doing. So we have some lean metrics. We may want to see some strategy in a bubble chart type view. Maybe we want to look at it by strategic theme and costs and where things land, different budget data. How are we doing on our budget? Where's the money being spent? And so forth. Rich set of reports, and obviously the ability to build more and more reports as we go using the data that we're capturing in OnePlan and the power of Power BI to pull that all together into visual reports. And Jim, with that, I think I'm going to wrap up.
All right, let me take back the screen and let me know when you can see me.
I can, go ahead.
All right, terrific. Well, thank you for the demonstration, Paul. And please be aware that this product-oriented focus and more agile and lean approach that Paul showed is just one possible configuration. If you have variations on the theme or you have different methods that you use to do those things, it's highly configurable, not customizable, but configurable within the context of the administration of the system within the admin pages to structure those things, the forms, the views, and things the way that you see the world. So just be aware of that. So let's go on to summarization and some next steps here. So in summary, we talked about how digital transformation is disrupting organizations everywhere, and that we need to rethink business models and approaches and how we reach our customers and deliver our products. The product-centric approaches with agile execution are growing rapidly, as we saw from the Gartner surveys, and we need to deliver value to customers quickly and be able to adapt quickly to change in order to be relevant and maintain a lead that we want to have within our particular marketplaces. OnePlan can provide the tools to support these modern approaches and methods and help automate that and provide visibility and approaches to actually executing on these things. And this can only help organizations to be able to better work on the right things and then execute well on the right things and have the right mindset, culture, and organization to support that. And it can definitely be a facilitator and help facilitate change as we go through that transformation process. So a little bit about OnePlan. Just to let you know, we are a multi-gold certified Microsoft partner with a particular emphasis in project and portfolio management. That's really our passion around these things. And Microsoft has named us their global PPM or project and portfolio management partner of the year, as well as we've been the runner-up before. So we're very significant in that ecosystem. But not only do we align ourselves with Microsoft technology, we are certified with Scaled Agile Inc. as a Scaled Agile partner to help people with these Scaled Agile approaches that Paul was showing here today. And we just don't deal with the technology. We help you with the people, process, and technology that we showed you in the slides early on to make sure that we take a holistic approach, whether it be in more adaptive or agile portfolio management or some variation of the theme. And then we're here to really support you to whatever degree you want to be supported. Do you want just implementation services to help you put an automated solution in place like you saw here today? Or do you want some education and training around the tools and or the disciplines? We provide ongoing support vehicles for people to support them ongoing to make sure their adoption and transformation is successful, as well as advisory services to help consult on the ways to make those transformations, whether it be an agile transformation, whether it may just be standing up a PMO, or getting to whatever place that people would like to be using best practices that are seen in the industry. We do these webinars all the time. We have one this time next week called Reinventing the PMO in the Age of Disruption. A little variation on the theme, but a different twist on that if you're interested on how we're addressing the needs of the modern marketplace with OnePlan solutions. Also, if you like some of the things you saw here today and you want to try it out, you can get a free trial on AppSource, the OnePlan adaptive project portfolio management with some demo data and things like that that you can work with and kind of get hands-on with it. We also have different flavors of these, whether it be in strategic portfolio management, agile portfolio management, and our professional services automation as well. So feel free to take advantage of that if you like. And when you go through there, we can actually help chaperone you on that and give you some guided tour on that as well. Also, if you're interested in what it would take to get into a solution like this, we do offer a free roadmap workshop where we can help review and talk to you about your current use of solutions and tools, discussion of what your desired future state might be, and how you would implement or migrate into this new solution and what it would take to do that. So let us know if we can help you with that in that free offer. So on the next steps, you could go to a trial like we talked about, or you could call us or contact us about a roadmap workshop, or if you're just not that far along, if you're still kind of evaluating and shopping, feel free to contact us for a personalized one-on-one demo. Paul gave a very good generalized demo for you to give you an idea of those things, but reach out to us at contact@oneplan.ai if you'd like to have something more targeted to your use cases and your requirements. And you can find out more about us at oneplan.ai at our website. So with that, I'd like to thank you for carving out some of your valuable day for us for this message. Once again, contact@oneplan.ai, or you can reach out to Paul or I directly if you care to. You will be getting a copy of these slides as well as a recording of this presentation, so you'll have this information at the ready. Thank you again for attending, and we really do hope to engage with you in the future. Have a great day.